How's it going, my G's? It's Artifact, and I just got banned on Instagram for a week, so that's fun, isn't it? I thought I'd make a little video today on what I consider to be 7 laws of music production that you just can't argue with. The reason I wanted to make this video is because there's so much advice out there with music production. There's so many people giving different opinions and ideas, and it can be very overwhelming. And I've heard it from students. They just being pulled this way and this way on what to do, how to improve your sound. It can be quite overwhelming with all the information out there. So I thought I'd make a list of some rules that you can't really argue with, and a lot of everything else that you do outside of these rules, it's really just down to you. These are going to be quite simple as well. Number 1, music is subjective, right? Obviously, we all know that already. What do I actually mean by that? I mean that although, for example, certain record labels may boost up certain artists over others, at the end of the day, it's all down to the listener and what they think of a particular song. They may have their decisions influenced by other people, but really, it is everyone's personal opinion. So if you make a song that is relatable to many people, then many people will like it. If you make a song that's not so relatable or easy to follow or understand, then not so many people will understand it or like it. And it's really that simple. What I've found is the people who are most successful or the most interesting to follow in the music world are people who really have honed in on their own kind of sound, and they're just really expressing themselves in their own most unique way possible. That's where I think you can give rise to the most interesting, pleasing results for people to hear, because they can kind of hear your kind of soul being pushed through the music, even if it's electronic music. The certain way that you're doing it or producing it, or the influences that you're using, is very, very unique to you, and it's not comparable to anyone else. And I think that's what makes a particular piece of music more interesting and appealing. The second rule is the vibe is more important than the mixdown. Now, why is this true? It's because you've all got an older song that you like, you like listening to, you enjoy it, but you think, the mixdown it's not very great, but you still just love that song, right? And if that's the case, that just kind of proves that how good a song is emotionally and how it grabs you and hits you from a compositional standpoint is the most important thing. You should still be aiming to get the best mixdown that you possibly can, of course, but you should never prioritize a perfectly mixed down track which doesn't have a really cool or interesting vibe over a song that just has a great vibe. You've kind of struggled a bit with the mix down, but the kind of song is just cool, right? This happens when I kind of try and write something a bit crazy and I can't really get this kind of perfect mix down that I want. I'll still release the song anyway, because at the end of the day, it's about the emotion and feeling that you get from hearing the song. It's not a competition of who's got the cleanest sound. I think really just always go for fun, great vibe, kind of interesting song, then mix it down to the best of your ability. But don't ever let this perfect mix down thing stop you from sharing your work. Law number 3 is you are working in the confines of a room. What do I mean by this? I mean, when you're producing music, especially in the digital realm, whether you like it or not, you're trapped in a certain box. There's no way you can escape outside of this box. You're going to have to fill the box in the best way that you can. So you kind of have 3 layers to this room. You have volume and frequencies. So from the floor to the ceiling, how much a volume are you going to fill each frequency in the room? You're going to have a lot of bass in this area, you're going to have a lot of highs, or you're going to have a lot of mid-range. That's the kind of height of the room. Then you have the width of the room, which is how wide the stereo image is going to be. There's only a certain amount of width, otherwise you can't go infinitely wide. It's kind of still contained within this kind of perceived room. If it's in the middle, it's just completely mono. So how stereo mono is everything going to be? And then the depth. How far away is a sound going to be perceived to be? By taking out some high end, by adding some reverb, by quietening the sound, you're pushing this sound more into the background. You're giving it more depth. So how far away, how close, how loud is a particular frequency, and how wide is a particular sound. And so with everything you do, whether it's an individual sound or the mix as a whole, everything is kind of working in the confines of a room. And it's just how good you are at filling out that room and how dynamic the changes in that room are going to be. But you're always trapped in this room. Law number 4 is the highest quality and most interesting sounds captivate the listener the most. It's basically my honouring sound design. And the reason why I place sound design so high, especially when you're starting and you're trying to get inspiration. If you think about natural sounds like the sound of an ocean, these are sounds that don't necessarily have any musical character to them. If you sit there and you just close your eyes and you listen to the sounds of waves or any kind of natural sounds or rain, you kind of meditate, you can be transported into this place. You can imagine yourself there, and it's like you're setting yourself in this kind of new scene and this like imaginary world. And if you can do that just with a simple sound that you hear, then it just goes to show how important the actual sound design of a sound is, how it can transport you into a new place. If you start with that before you even get into timing, arrangement, melody, pitching and rhythm and everything, the actual sound design, the particular textures of a sound are so important when it comes to captivating a listener. So that's why I think the tracks or songs that have really high level of quality of particular sounds or the most interesting sounds are the most captivating. Law number 5, there is always less life when there is no movement or melody. So this is pretty obvious, right? But still I hear it a lot of times in a lot of productions. There can be a certain sound or a bass that just really doesn't have much movement. It's just kind of there. It's just kind of sustained. It's always going to be less interesting and less appealing if each sound doesn't have a movement, the dynamics of the sound. Essentially, you want each sound to feel like it's alive and it has a lifeline. And this is going to help add that kind of storyline to the whole of your song. And you can think of each sound as like a specific character, and it should be progressing or moving in some way. And when all these characters are interacting and they all have their own changes in pitch or changes in volume or kind of automating or changing over time in some way, it's the combination of all of these characters together that make up the whole kind of film of a whole song in terms of the narrative. Never neglect to put as much movement and as much melody into each of your specific elements as you can, because it will just result in a more lively and exciting experience for the listener. The 6th law kind of ties in from the previous one, and that is that the structure of the song tells the story. Especially helpful for people who tend to work on specific loops for too long, or you try to get the most perfect kind of 16 bar or 8 bar loop going. That's all well and good, and you should definitely be doing that. But the quicker you can transition from, loop mindset into full song structure mindset, the quicker everything will become better. Because a loop on its own means nothing without context of what comes before it and what comes after it. It's just a piece of dead audio, essentially, because the whole way that you create interest for a particular loop is from how you come into it and how you come out of it. And it's the transition and the changing, and it's the narrative, kind of the storytelling of the song that make it seem special. You can't have a great drop on its own and it be special without context. It's all about the energy flow of your song. So, rising tension, releasing tension. And if you just focus only on one area and you don't have this contrast in energy between different sections in your song, it's no wonder that you would quickly get bored of one section of the song. It always has to be thought of in context of the whole narrative of the movie / song, right? Last but not least, my final and 7th law is if no one hears your music, you will not improve. There's no reason to feel afraid to put out a piece of music even if you're not completely happy with it. First of all, you don't get to decide whether someone else likes it or not. And secondly, there's no such thing as a bad song. There's only such things as a popular song or an unpopular song. The idea that a unpopular song could taint or ruin your reputation is ridiculous, because what about comebacks? People always make comebacks, right? And people judge music individually on the song that they like or don't like. And there are many artists or bands that you may hate 90% of their music. Some of their songs you absolutely love and you listen to on repeat, and you don't judge them for the ones that you don't like. You just listen to the ones that you do like. There's no reason to be afraid to put out your music even if you're not sure. And if you don't, then you will not be able to get the feedback that you need to improve and grow. And the beautiful thing about today is you don't need to be signed to a record label to put out your music. You can just share it to your friends, your family, on social media, on all of these platforms, even publish it yourself to Spotify. Is very, very simple. So there's no real reason why you can't share your music and use it as a way to get feedback, to improve, and think about the long-term goals here. I hope you guys found that video helpful. And make sure you like and subscribe. Check out the links down below to my vital presets. Come along and join my Discord community on Patreon. We have some wicked Zoom hangouts on there as well. Yeah, also there are some links down below to my website. You can find my music production tuition information down there as well. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Peace.